South Carolina is after that. In regards to South Carolina, Bernie Sanders is down significantly, which leads me to the discussion of Cornel West, who was at Benedict College, a historically black college and university in South Carolina. He was there over the weekend on the 12th, which was Saturday, I believe, and he was there campaigning on behalf of Bernie Sanders. So I want to play some clips of Cornel West campaigning for Bernie Sanders and to watch it. And then I started reading the feedback from across the internet, different people, different thought leaders, and just random selection, do a random sampling of opinions about the endorsement and the introduction of Bernie Sanders by Cornel West. And I've seen some good feedback, but I've also seen some negative feedback. Now, with all that being said, I want to play a couple of clips from Brother Cornel West at Benedict College.
Concerned with unarmed truth, and the condition of truth is always to allow suffering to speak. And if you're concerned about truth in politics, you have to push out the big money. If you're concerned about truth in politics, you're going to have to keep track of the poor children. You have to keep track of the elderly and the orphans and the widows and the working people whose wages are stagnated. And you have to keep track of the 1% who now own 42% of the wealth, and in the richest nation of the world, 22% of children, 40% of black children, brown children, red children still live in poverty. That's a moral disgrace and spiritually profane. That's what Brother Bernie Sanders stands for. That's why we are here.
All right, let me stop there for a second. All right, so that's Cornel West. And he's giving an introduction of Bernie Sanders at Benedict College. As you can see, the demographic there is, well, Benedict College is a historically black college. So it's not disingenuous to have a backdrop of all black people, because it is a HBCU, which is probably, each HBCU in the United States is probably 99% black. So well played, Bernie Sanders. We don't want you to go to a construction site and have all black people behind you. Let's just keep it real all the way across the board, right? Wherever you go, let's put a representation of where you are on stage. And I think that was a good representation, because Benedict College, I went to HBCU, I went to Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach, Florida, hell, Wildcats. And it was 99% black. And we had maybe two people, it was a small school. So we had maybe one or two people from, not even white Americans. We had like people from Russia and Yugoslavia and different places like that. But anyway, it's important that you listen to what Cornel West is saying. And he's communicating it kind of in an esoteric way, but that's just how Cornel West talks, right? They may need to get someone who can speak it a little more plainly. But if you listen to what he's saying, he's regurgitating the same things that he's been saying for many, many years. And it is the same thing that Bernie Sanders has been saying for many, many years. And that is that if you are really concerned about the condition of poor people in America and the amount of youth that are raised in poverty, the amount of African American youth, which is disproportionately represented in poverty. If you're concerned about it, then two things have to happen. You have to get money out of politics, and you have to look at the top 1%, where 42% of America's wealth is concentrated in the top 1%. That leaves the rest of America, 99% of America, with a pittance of what America's wealth really is. That is a shame. And you cannot talk about the conditions of poor people in America, and you cannot talk about the conditions of African Americans in America without talking about the disparity of wealth. Now, I know there are a lot of people who think that we have to address this only from a perspective of white supremacy and racism. But you cannot talk about racism in America without talking about economic disparities. It's impossible. I want to pull up a quote by, and then we're going to go to a quick break, and then I'll take this call that's calling in. I want to pull up a quote by Cornel West, and this was a quote that I saw in Mike magazine, Mike.com, and it puts it so perfectly. it puts it, boom, boom, boom. Where's that quote? Here it is. Cornel West said, it's very important to put pressure on all progressive politicians, no matter what color, but we should always acknowledge that the issue of not just the issue of not just economic injustice but class injustice is so fundamental in terms of wrestling with the vicious legacy of white supremacy. And then there's this quotable moment here. I can't conceive of talking about struggling against white supremacy without talking about class. I cannot conceive of talking about struggling against white supremacy without talking about class. So this is from Cornel West, and I can't agree with him more. It is impossible to talk about white supremacy without talking about class. All right, folks, I'm going to take my first break and then I'll pick up that call. When I come back, I want to dig in a little more what Cornel West said, and I want to talk about class, white supremacy, how that plays into the James Blake incident in New York, as well as Republicanomics. We'll be back.